Hunting is an avid hobby of mine and runs in the family. My favorite animals to catch are deer and boars, as they are quite a challenge to catch, and I love challenges. As well as general hunting, camping in the woods is therapeutic for me, as you're in nature's natural habitat, which can be greatly enjoyed when you're by yourself. Accompanying this are the type of people you meet while hiking. I've met people who shared food and campfire with me, and some even hiked with me in the gorgeous wilderness we call the woods. But most of the time, it's your animal friends who accompany you while walking and camping. I wish the story was about the above, but things took a plummet for the worse, and this is my story. I recently completed an assignment, which I would describe as long-winded and quite boring, even though it's my favorite topic, human biology. Due to this, I decided to take a 5-day hike across a vast stretch of woods, brilliant for hunting apparently. As a hunting enthusiast, I decided to hunt for some deer, and possibly some boar, if I came across any. So I prepped up my water filter, packed up my tranquilizer and hunting equipment, as well as my pop-up tent and some snacks high in energy, and took a 3.5 drive to my destination. I was stoked and excited, as I could unwind around nature and overall enjoy the atmosphere that the woods provided. After what seemed like days behind the wheel, I arrived at what looked like an abandoned parking lot at 3 p.m. as all the bays were empty. The ranger's office looked like it hadn't been occupied for years. I parked and began my hike. The place gave me a very uneasy vibe, as the woods beyond the ranger's office were sinister in a way. I can't really describe what gave me this uneasiness, but I honestly chalked it up to the place looking abandoned and creepy. Either way, I headed out onto the path and began scouting the area for animals. I gotta be honest, this set of woods was exquisite. The sun was shining through the trees and the animals were up and active. I came across a few deers, but no boars unfortunately. Fast forward to 8:30 p.m. It was uneventful to be honest, and it was getting pretty dark and gloomy now, as it's mid-November. Now, I need to add that I'm quite a paranoid guy, as my house was burglarized at the age of 15. All was okay in the end, but the paranoia of something or someone lurking in the shadows stays with me in the back of my mind when I'm out alone at night. Anyway, excuse the babbling. I then whipped up a fire, cooked up some marshmallows, and warmed up some beans. I ate away, minding my own business. After this, I decided to go for a late night hunt, as I did a 2-week course on how to hunt prey in the woods when it's dark, and I think it really paid off. 15 minutes later, I put the fire out as I was prepared to go on a late night hunt. But then, my blood ran cold as ice, and my hands started to shake when I saw a silhouette of a man about 100 meters away from me. It was unexpected, so it initially freaked me the fuck out. As well as this, I noticed a small pocket knife in their hand, and it looked like they were crouching and stalking something. I believed it was a man about 6 feet tall, and his back was facing me, so I believed he didn't notice I was there, which was a godsend. However, it could just be another hunter like myself. After shitting bricks while watching this man for 5 minutes, he disappeared into the inky sky, and I got over it pretty quickly as I thought it was a fellow hunter like myself. I honestly wish that was the case. Fast forward an hour, and it's around 9:45, and I'm feeling confident enough to go back into the black wilderness and catch a deer or two, or maybe even a boar. I pinpoint where my tent is with a map, and I went on my way with my hunting equipment. 10 minutes later, I'm practically in no man's land, as everywhere around me was pitch black. I was stalking a deer, which hadn't noticed me, and was about 50 meters in front of me. I grabbed my tranquilizer and placed the deer in my sights. That's when I heard twigs snap. My eyes darted, my legs went into jelly mode, and I jerked my neck to the source of the noise. What the fuck? A fucking silhouette appeared out of the trees to the left of me, about 50 yards away, and just watched me. Not the deer, but me. The deer was long gone by now, so it was just me and an unwanted guest. His size concluded to me that he was the same guy as before, roughly 6 feet, 200 pounds. He stared at me, and I stared back, my body still as a stone. But then my sudden outburst of adrenaline was making me shake. I couldn't see his face as it was too dark. Fuck. Was he the late night human butcherer? Am I not going to see daylight again? I just about choked out. Who's there? I tried to say in the calmest voice I could, but the fear was evident when I asked the question. The man raised his hand with a pocket knife and pointed his index finger towards me. That was it. I fucking bolted it north, while mildly tripping over and hitting my head on tree branches. Twigs snapped rapidly behind me as the son of a bitch was chasing me. I looked back and saw his vacant right hand brushing the tree branches to the side of him, his knife gripped tightly in his left hand. I then realized that during it all, I had dropped my tranquilizer. Fuck that shit, I can buy a new one. I know, I should have shot the guy, but it's amazing what one can forget when in a horrific situation, even if it's a gun. I wasn't going back for it. A ton of thoughts were going through my mind while I was fleeing. Why me? What does he want? Money? Food? What could it fucking be? That's when I honestly thought I was gonna piss myself, as then he said one rapid tone, "Isn't this fun?" He then had the goddamn audacity to start laughing in a patronizing way, and I couldn't take it anymore. I sped up, and I'll tell you now, it's amazing what the human body can do when adrenaline and natural instincts take over. I never ran so fast in my life. I made a hard right, dove into some bushes nearby quietly, and eventually lost the guy. I heard footsteps going the opposite way, and it turns out that I went in a huge circle as I could see my tent only 50 meters away now. I was fucking shaking, and tears started to form, but I had to stay strong. I just had to. What would my father do in this situation? I turned my ears into the inky darkness and heard nothing, saw nothing. I was not going to turn my phone light on, as I'd be an open target. I checked my watch and it was now 10:30. I was in my tent for 10 minutes. I sat there listening to every small noise I could hear in the woods. Snap. I held my gasp as I heard a twig snap behind my tent. And then a low sinister voice. "You think you can run? I win." With that, my tent was being sliced open and the fucker's head popped in. He was fucking licking his lips and his eyes were locked with my eyes. "You lose," he screams as he pulls the knife out. Fighting, not my strong point, but the gym made me a pretty strong guy. So he tried to stab me and I grabbed both of his arms and fended him off from plunging his blade into my torso. I tried to disarm him and he laughed during the whole process. I thought he was trying to intimidate me. However, I was ready to kill. Not a deer, not a boar, but a human. I restrained his left wrist, but the knife was inches away from going into my foot. As I stepped onto his right hand, I pulled back on his left wrist. Then, snap. His wrist was snapped. He let out a blood-curdling scream. I had the upper hand on this fucker and took advantage of this. I got the knife from his shattered hand and gave him a taste of his own medicine. I sunk the knife into his right hand and he screamed. I laid a few punches and I think I popped his nose, but I have no regrets. I grabbed my arm in pain as he made me bend in an awkward position when he was on top of me when he first ripped into the tent. But honestly, I couldn't care less about my injuries. He tried to kick me, but I punched him in the face until he was unconscious. I checked my phone and I had no phone service. Fuck, I panted. I picked up this fucker into a fireman's lift, and I remembered on my way there was a ranger's office that was exactly west of my tent. After an hour struggling with a killer on my shoulders out cold, I found the ranger station, and to my surprise, a young man around 20 was there. I collapsed to my knees as I explained the situation, and it turns out this guy slashed my left bicep, but the adrenaline numbed out the pain. So when it finally wore off, I was in pain and noticed the laceration. The ranger called for backup and they eventually arrived. I don't know how long it took. Screw my belongings, I wasn't going back out there to retrieve them. The ranger offered to drive me to the nearest hospital in my car. The night stalker was taken away, but was semi-conscious. The next day I was woke up in the hospital to an officer. What he said next is burned into my memory and will never be erased. When I first saw the killer, his back was towards me. The knife was in his left hand, and he was crouching as I mentioned earlier. It turns out that he was stalking another hiker who was brutally murdered and mutilated at the scene. They found chloroform at the scene, hence why I never heard any screams or cries for help. I vowed from there on never to go hunting by myself again. The next time I went hunting was years after this incident, with 4 of my mates. Although the woods have a beautiful atmosphere and vibe, never judge a book by its cover, as tables can be turned within a blink of an eye. For all of you that go camping and hiking, stay safe, and remember, don't think that these things can't happen to you. Okay, this happened to me last year. Keep in mind, this is told in the perspective of a female. I started school at a local community college. I was looking to make new friends since I never really had the opportunity before. I was a weird fat kid throughout elementary and high school. College was a chance for me to reinvent myself, to actually make friends and fit in for once. It's college. No one gives a fuck if you're weird. You're all just trying to get through finals, after all. Well, I had class with this one kid. Let's call him Creep, because that's what he was. Anyway, me and the Creep had our ITE class together. I'd see him every day, but didn't talk to him much. He stayed in his corner of the room. I sat with my friend, and the older lady, we'll name Jay. I had a TARDIS backpack. Yeah, I know. It's not bigger on the inside, by the way. Anyway, he saw this and said it was cool. I said that was cool, and we talked a bit about our interests as we walked to our next class. He was into cosplay, as was I, and we both enjoyed BBC programs along with anime. He seemed friendly, and I went about my day. Things got uncomfortable after that. He started showing up everywhere that I did. Mostly he would invite himself to lunch with me and my friend S. He was disgusting. We went to lunch one day, and he ordered this burger with peppers, onions, and mayo. Mayo is the bane of my existence, mind you. He didn't use napkins. The thing smelled terrible, and he wiped it on his already stained pants. It wasn't pleasant to say the least. He kept popping up places and inviting himself to lunch, and I was beyond done with him. I have a habit of attracting weird people. I don't know why. I was just ready to cut and run if it came to it. Anyway, he invited himself to lunch with me again when S wasn't present. He said he had a crush on S, and I knew S went through a bad breakup. I told him to leave her alone, but he was insistent on me seeing if she liked him. I said no, leave her alone. He left after that, and I enjoyed my shitty spaghetti. Then the freaky thing happened. I was leaving to go to my car one day when I ran into him. We talked a bit, but I was trying to get away from him, but he really insisted on talking. Eventually, I tried to excuse myself, saying that I was going to go to my car and I would talk to him later. He followed me. He said it was fine and walked with me towards my car. He then proceeded to tell me a funny story about him getting drunk and punching his crazy ex in the face. Like that would totally impress me or some shit. I did what any normal person would. I looked him in the eye and said, no. Got in my car and drove off. He fucked off and left me alone after that. That wasn't the really creepy part though. No. I learned a few weeks ago, he killed someone before. Apparently, he got into a fight and stabbed someone in self-defense. The circumstances were more than shady though, but the police in my area are pretty shitty. The guy the Creep stabbed ended up dying. So yeah, I was stalked by someone who killed another person. Ain't I lucky?